class a, quote, basketball team due to the average height being just a hair under 6'4". Deshaun Wright, the second of 3 corners taken by the Cowboys, is confident in his length, saying this: I kind of look at myself like a more athletic, agile Richard Sherman. How about that for confidence? Shannon, will being taller and longer, will it work for the Cowboys? Skip, you're not up yet.
Yeah,
Shannon, tell me.
Basketball team. I'm thinking maybe like Washington Generals. I know for our younger audience, Skip, they don't know who the Generals are. But you know who the Generals are. They were the team that lost all the games to the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh.
Skip, what has this got to do with anything? Just because you got guys that are the height and the length of Sherm and Brandon Browner, that doesn't mean you're going to get the productivity. And this dude up there talking, does he understand that Richard Sherman has a Hall of Fame resume? I don't realize.
I think he does. I mean, I think he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame.
So he's up. So in other words, I know Oregon. He's from Oregon State. He's up there in the Northwest. So he knows who Richard Sherman is.
Yeah.
I don't know if he knows who he is, but I don't know if he knows. He needs to go pull up some tape on Sherm and see, and just hope he has half the career as Sherm. He'll have good
seem
career.
To know all about Sherm. Yep.
Jerry just can't help himself, Skip. Well, I got me some basketball players. You playing football. Can they play football, Skip? I know they tall. I know they length, and we want to length. We going to challenge people. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, you still got to play. All that height, size, speed, strength, Skip, it comes down to, can you play football?
Thank you.
I've seen some of the guys that look like bench 500 pounds, squat 600. And couldn't play dead in a horror movie. And I see some guys, you're like, man, put a towel on. That's terrible. And wreck shop.
Tom Brady.
Yes, come on. It's more to playing football than looking like a football player. And I think Jerry thinks because I got guys at 6'3.5", 200, 210 pounds, that's long and angular. Ooh, boy, we got something for y'all this year. Okay, but guess what? You still got to play the game. I don't care what you look like. You're going to have to play. And I guarantee you, when they walk out there, they're like, man, look how tall that team is. Man, I don't know how we're going to get up any shots today. Hey, we playing football.
Look at those long arms.
Look, I understand what Dan Quinn wants. Dan Quinn's going to play that single high safety where they, what we call lurk, where they jump the crossing routes and all that. You need guys that's going to be able to challenge. Because, Skip, you want to make it tough. That's why the teams want big body receivers. That's why guys want big body corners. Yep. Okay, I get that. But at the end of the day, can you play football?
Yep.
That's what it comes down to, Skip. Yeah, you want guys, if you watch them on tape, and you want the measurables to match. You want 6'3", 205, can run, can jump. Can he play football?
Okay. So to echo what you just said, just for the record, I learned my football from the great Bill Walsh. I thought he was the greatest coach ever. I learned a whole lot of football from the great Tom Landry, and I learned a whole lot more football from one of the greatest defensive coaches ever, Jimmy Johnson, who works for this network. Not one time in all my many years of learning about the game you played did I ever hear length. I never heard it. I never heard height or length. Like, it just didn't matter. They came in all sizes.
Right.
It's about your heart and your gift.
Right.
And your desire.
So they passed on Dion because he wasn't 6'4". You didn't want time because he ain't 6'4".
There have been tall corners. Mike Haynes was a great one, as you remember.
Blunt.
Mel Blunt, long and tall but strong.
Yes.
Played more press.
Yeah, they made him change the rule. The 5-yard rule came in because of Mel.
They can come in that size. They can come in little sizes.
Right.
There's a little man who played for Washington. Remember that little man?
Darryl Green.
Darryl Green. He's like 5'9", or I don't know what he was.
Niels Weaves is another small one.
Right. And they're Hall of Famers. So you can do it a lot of different ways.
Right.
So here's what I think just happened. Jerry Jones hired Mike McCarthy, and he gave him carte blanche. He said, you pick your staff, you pick your coordinator. And you know what Mike did? He reached back into his past for Mike Nolan, who once upon a time had given him a job as an offensive coordinator when Mike was the head coach in San Francisco. So it was a form of nepotism, not exactly related, but football related.
Right.
Where I owe you, I'm going to get you paid, I'm going to pull you out of mothballs, up out of the attic. I'm going to dust you off, and I'm going to give you the defensive coordinator job of the Dallas Cowboys America's team. And Shannon, it was a disaster from the start. Every free agent that Jerry had handpicked rebelled on him, turned on him to the point that at midseason, Jerry had to say, I got to clean house because I got a mutiny on my hands in the locker room. So every one of those free agents, gone, because they said this is not the way you do it in this league because they'd all had success other places. So Jerry said, okay, Mike, I gave you your shot. Now it's my turn. And he goes out and picks a guy who happens to be on the open market. This guy's name is Dan Quinn. And what had happened to Dan Quinn in Washington? Well, he became the head coach in 2015, and he is a defensive coach because he earned his spurs. He gained his fame coaching the Legion of Boom.
Correct.
Well, wait a second. Did he pick those players and mold those players into what they were? No. Gus Bradley was the original architect of the Legion of Boom.
Correct.
So it was already in motion and in place when Dan Quinn took over.
John Snyder and Pete Carroll picked those players.
Okay. Thank you very much. So just quickly to show you the background of one Dan Quinn, he played at Salisbury State in Maryland. Fine. I'll give you that. And he was from Morristown, New Jersey, but then he goes to William and Mary as an assistant in VMI and Hofstra for a while. But finally, he gets Mariucci in San Francisco to hire him as the quality control coach. Well, you know what that is. That's the bottom end guy who just, he does the legwork, right?
Stapling papers together.
He's got papers. He's stapling papers together.
Game plan, yes.
Okay, but it got him in the door of the NFL. And then he goes to the Dolphins and the Jets. He goes briefly to Seattle with Jim Mora. And then he goes to Florida in college football with Will Muschamp, who's a close friend of his, is the DC. And then he goes back to Seattle, and you know the rest of that Legion of Boom story for 2013 and 14. And then here he comes to Atlanta. Here are his defensive ranks in points allowed while he's with the Atlanta Falcons. He's overseeing the he's effectively...
He's the DC.
He's the DC.
Yeah.
Atlanta ranks, this is starting in 2015. 14th, 27th, then 8th, 25th, 23rd, and in the last year, 2020, 19th. So that's an average of ranking 19th in the NFL in points allowed. And somehow you're a guru of defense? Really? Even in the year they got to the Super Bowl, they ranked 27th on defense. It was Matt Ryan MVP bombs away to Julio, right?
And so my question is, Skip, if you want that type of defensive player, you want a long, angular guy, why didn't you get those in Atlanta? And if you did, why wasn't it any
Had none like that in Atlanta that I know of. I don't know one.
I don't know one either.
Okay? But from what I know of Dan Quinn, he is very charismatic and can be very overpowering one-on-one. He has a little bit of sort of faith healer, fitness guru type in him. You know, he's a good public speaker. He's very impressive.
Right.
And once he sat with Jerry, he won Jerry completely over. And he brought his little magic kid in, and he convinced Jerry, we need to get longer and taller. We need to get longer and taller. And Jerry just swallowed it whole because Jerry can be very impressionable. And flavor of the month, Jerry can just, as we always say, fall in love.
That's how Mike McCarthy got the job.
He did.
Because Jerry was so impressed, he fell in love.
Right? Overnight. They had a long, you know, beer and nacho session at Jerry's palatial estate in Highland Park.
Yes.
And that was the rest of that. And they signed him at sunup, right? After a long night.
Because Jerry Jr. said, Dad, what are you waiting for?
Okay. So here comes Dan Quinn, and Jerry has swallowed this whole, and he lets Dan Quinn run free agency and run the draft in effect. Because in free agency, their two key signees were off Dan Quinn's defense from last year in Atlanta. He got fired because they fell to 0-5. And what did they do? Game number 2 at Jerry World, they're up 29-10 at halftime, and they blow it in the second half and lose 40-39.
Yeah, you're up 39. You were up 39-20. Whew. And you lost.
And that's why you pretty quickly got fired.
Correct.
And then you're going to be the savior of Dallas's defense? Well, it can't be any worse than it was last year because I think it was the worst in franchise history. As we keep talking about, they gave up 308 yards rushing to Cleveland at home. Yeah. And then they had 3 more plus 200 yards.
Baltimore, Washington,
Arizona on a Monday night.
But Skip, look, this notion that if that was the case, every DB that could run 4.2 would be Deion Sanders or Darrell Green. We know that's not the case. At the end of the day, you have to play. Take speed up. Everson Walls barely cracked 4.7. but was an all-pro, led the league in interceptions.
Knew him well. He was undrafted out of Grambling.
So skip this notion that, oh, speed, oh, they tall, they this and that. At the end of the day, tell me this. I don't want to know how tall he is. I don't want to know how much he weighs or how fast he can run. Can he play football?
Okay.
Is he a good football player?
All right. So Jerry let Dan Quinn bring with him from that. Remember, the Atlanta pass defense was the 5th worst in the history of this league.
Yes.
And he brings with him Keanu Neal and DeMonte Kazee, the 2 safeties. What? And I'm supposed to be happy with that? And then he lets him, in every round, take the guy who had the longest arms. Seriously, every round, every pick, they're the tallest. They average almost 6'4",
right,
and they all have the longest arms at their position.
Right.
And I'm